All right, let's get reaction now. We're now joined via Teams by Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda, the president of the African Diaspora Global Network. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Just your reaction to the latest in this long-standing matter. I mean, how does the extension to November 2025 ease the burden on thousands of Zimbabweans and Basotho from possibly being deported, of course, from South Africa?
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me. Well, look, what it basically means is that at least there is some, form of, determinants. People are aware of what exactly, kind of status that they have, for the next 2 years. And now what it means, what we are hoping should happen now is that, those permits or visas should be stuck on their passports. And most important of all, maybe what we want to understand is that when the minister says they are extended, he says that it doesn't mean that those that have applied for waivers, they will be treated in terms of the waivers that they apply, to the extent that they will just be called to come and collect, the visas, and those that have not are going to go and apply, for the exemption permits, as has always been the case. And if that is the case, how long is that going to take? Because it normally takes a bit of a while, and that will eat into the 2 years, which is already started, because it's up to the 29th of November, seeing that is the 1st of December. But in any event, the mere fact that there is some extension.
Dr. Sibanda, just for clarity, he does say, that in the event some have applied for waivers or other visas, they need not worry in this particular case to apply for new permits in the interim, during this particular period and during this status or during this period of extension, because their statuses remains protected while they await, of course, the status of that particular waiver. Does that perhaps, answer the question?
Not really. I actually heard that. That's why I'm actually trying to understand that. Now, does the minister mean that those that have applied for waivers, they will only be called to VFS or the department to collect, the extension, the new visa that is going to, last up until the 29th of November? Because if they say they don't need to apply, and he says those that haven't must then apply for the waiver. Because the view should be that if there is a 2-year extension, it means that people are going to get, those stickers, because a lot of people were having problems, especially, going on these, ministerial, statements and press briefings or, gazettes, where in particular they don't necessarily have that particular sticker on the visa, because a lot of, even government departments tend to give people problems when they don't see the physical visa on the passport.
Now, of course, we know that there's a lot of litigation around this particular matter. I mean, the courts ruled that the scrapping of the ZEP and LEP was unconstitutional, something that the Department of Home Affairs is appealing, at the Supreme Court of Appeal. How would you say South Africa has handled this particular matter to date?
Well, look, I think the South Africans in general, of course, I mean, there is a number of people like, Dudula, that have been feeling quite aggrieved and feeling that the minister did not have, the prerogative to so do, including, the truck drivers that also joined the application, and they were saying the minister did not have, the authority to do that. However, in view of, the court ruling, I mean, it remains a bit interesting to note that the minister basically says that, retains, one of those conditions to say somebody whose permit has been extended, up until the 29th of November 2025, they may not change their status. And one would have thought that since the minister in his previous, review in 2021, he actually had said, people should apply for other visas. You would have expected the minister to allow people to migrate during this 2-year period, to other visas that are more, in the mainstream visas. So that condition is defeated or complicated. So I think more South Africans to see that the minister seems unsure of what he is doing in that particular regard.
Dr. Sibanda, your line is not particularly great, but let's forge ahead. I want your view on, what Zimbabwe specifically and the Lesotho governments need to do in this particular case, because South Africa is not necessarily saying that foreign nationals are not allowed in the country. They just want them to have the necessary papers that go with, them being in the country, whether it is working or, or schooling or any other reason that is of a legal nature. What responsibility and where does the responsibility lie within those particular countries? Is there some sort of understanding that then needs to occur between Zimbabwe, Lesotho and South Africa?
Well, look, I don't think that there is an understanding, between, amongst these three governments, particularly, on the basis that, for starters, when you look at the documentation, we know that ZTP holders and L holders, these are those people that are undocumented, and why we have got such a great track of people from these countries to South Africa. Now, what we need to see happening, we need to see this government taking responsibility as to, making sure that they stay within their borders, to make sure that the push factors, that, because it's not necessarily the pull factors that are pulling people into South Africa, is mainly the economic conditions in those countries and to a certain extent political conditions. So to that extent, we need to see the government of Zimbabwe and also the government of Lesotho coming to the party to say, how do they mitigate, and make sure that at least those undocumented people that are not supposed to be in South Africa will go back, to their countries, and of course, even attract these ZEP and LEP holders to go back to their country because there is political and economic stability. These governments do have a very huge responsibility to play here, and we can only hope that in the interim, the government of South Africa can sit down its counterparts in these countries to say, look, it continue to keep people.
All right, so unfortunately, that's not a very stable line. But thank you so much for your thoughts, Dr. Sibanda. Of course, he is Vusumuzi Sibanda, the president of the African Diaspora Global Network, responding there, of course, to the news. Home Affairs Minister Dr. Motsoaledi granting an extension to Zimbabwean nationals for a period of 2 years.